Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to the Fantasy Roundup for Week 8 of the NFL season. It is October 25th. I'm Zach Ewing. That is Spencer the Guru. We are here to recap Week 7 for you. That's kind of how we break down the show. We'll recap the week that was. We'll talk about our listener league standings. We'll take, and then we'll move on to Week 8 and get Spencer's DFS advice, his waiver wire advice, all of that good stuff. And in the meantime, if you have questions or comments about your fantasy league, season long, DFS, whatever it may be, drop them in the comments. And don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe as you go through. Appreciate everyone stopping by on this Tuesday afternoon. Almost halfway through. In fact, we are halfway through the regular season of most fantasy leagues, Spencer.
Yeah, we're rolling through it, man. 7 weeks in, so yeah, most of these go 14 regular season weeks and the 3 playoff weeks. So yeah, it's going by quick, but it's been fun. Had a lot of crazy obstacles between all these bye weeks and injuries, but we're getting through it and can't wait to see what the future holds. Hopefully, get some titles.
I mean, with the way, especially say running back injuries, which is going to be one thing we talk about today with Breece Hall most likely out for the season. Rare is the fantasy season where that isn't an issue, right? Like where you don't have bye week and injury issues. I mean, that's kind of the fun part of it is that you've got to get through. You've got to get through these obstacles in these weeks where it's pretty difficult. Want to remind everybody we are brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. You can get a risk-free first bet, or not risk-free, but a first bet refund, if you will, in form of a free bet up to $1,250. That's for new users. Use promo code NOLA full or go to NOLA.com/Caesars today. Well, let's recap Week 7 for a minute, Spencer. Tony says, "Is there a Saints game tonight?" No, and I think the Saints are probably glad
Thank
they've got
goodness,
a
yeah.
few more days off.
Yeah,
Um,
they need it.
Play Las Vegas on Sunday, and I actually have. We'll talk more about this on Bayou Bets at 4 o'clock Thursday, Spencer. But I have a pretty good feeling about the Saints this week. I think they beat the Las Vegas Raiders.
Man, I hope you're right, Zach, because I surely don't. I'm still Derry Downer for this week, is because I feel like we'll have to see how the injury report plays out, but unless
Yes, that is
unless
true.
like a bunch of guys come back that I'm not expecting, then I'm not expecting a W. But hopefully, yeah, go Saints. Hopefully they prove me wrong. I'd love for them to prove me wrong, but I'm just being real as far as how I feel about it.
Part of my optimism is that I do think Jameis Winston's going to be back. I think there's a chance that Michael Thomas is back. If you get those pieces back, you're going to see a different team. And I think you kind of get the feeling around the Saints that this is last chance saloon. Two
Yeah,
and five is not good. There's still a chance with 2 home games in a row, a road trip to Pittsburgh that's winnable. You can still make a stand here. You get to 2 and 6, that's a
yeah.
different story because then you need 4 wins in a row to get back to 500. The schedule gets more difficult. I don't think it's going to happen. Uncle Big Nick does point out there's a Pelicans game tonight.
Yeah.
They got their own injury issues. No Brandon Ingram tonight. Zion Williamson's questionable. Herb
Yep,
Jones
no Herb
questionable.
Jones. Yeah,
Yeah.
they all got ruled out.
Oh, they're all ruled out now. Okay, so
Yeah.
so the Pelicans are shorthanded and they're underdogs in Dallas. Of course, first national TV appearance of the year, and they can't put the team out there. But let's get back on topic. Fantasy football week 7. For the second straight week, it was the Joe Burrow show in fantasy football, Spencer.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was thinking he might come back to earth this week. But he showed out again. He's showing that he's at an all pro level right now. Those Bengals offense is really clicking. And for anyone that thought Joe Burrow would have a Super Bowl hangover, well, that surely isn't happening.
It lasted about 2 weeks if he did.
Yeah. He did it, in week 1 against Pittsburgh, threw like 3 picks, but ever since then he's been on a roll. And we got some surprises in here, man. Danny Dimes, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields. What is going on at quarterback?
Well, I'll say this. I've been a Justin Fields, maybe apologist is the right word. I don't think he's nearly as bad as people say he is. He's behind a terrible offensive line, but he showed everybody what he could do on Monday night, last night. If you let him freelance, he's dangerous. And the Patriots are a very scheme-based defense. Justin Fields was able to show how dangerous he could be, and he made fewer mistakes than he usually does. And then Andy Dalton, look, that's just the importance of game flow in fantasy football. You don't always want to pick the quarterbacks who are going to win the game. In fact, sometimes you want to pick quarterbacks you know are going to be behind. And we can talk more about that in the DFS portion of the program in a little while. Moving on to running backs, though, this is where you want the teams in the lead. And you can see, although the Chargers actually trailed most of the week, Austin Eckler, such a receiving machine, racked up those points. But the next two, Josh Jacobs, KW3, those guys had the lead, and they got the ball over and over again, Spencer.
Definitely. Yeah, really nice to see Kenneth Walker showing out. And now with Breece Hall out for the year, it's looking like Kenneth Walker is going to be the top rookie running back, because in that Seahawks offense, Geno's kind of fallen off the past couple weeks. DK Metcalf's hurt now, to where they've gone back to their identity of running the football. And yeah, Ken Walker should definitely be able to keep that up. And then Jacobs has been an absolute stud the past few weeks. I remember him and Eckler were kind of off the slow starts, and some people are like, "Oh, maybe I should trade them," but hope you held
Don't
on to
fret.
those guys, because they've
Yeah.
been so strong recently.
Uncle Big Nick Zion and Michael Thomas have their own rooms at Tulane Hospital. Boy,
Oh
look,
man,
Michael Thomas, from everything that you hear from reporters who are inside the team, the guy's working his tail off to come back. This is not a situation where he's dogging it and doesn't want to come back, but clearly his body is starting to betray him. So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. They certainly need him back. Moving on to wide receivers, Jamar Chase, again, your top wide receiver. So it was the Burrow and Chase show again. But this time, you had a double Bengal sighting at the top, followed by a double Kansas City Chiefs sighting.
yeah, that was pretty surprising. Other than Chase, all these names, major surprise. I don't think we've seen any of these pop up in the top 5 before. I mean, I guess Juju's not a total shock, being that he's the top pure wide receiver on the Chiefs. Top target is Kelsey, but as far as receivers, Juju's the top target. Hardman, that was kind of a fluke, 2 rushing touchdowns. Don't expect him to reappear in this list. And then Paris Campbell, though, is interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he does with Sam Ellinger moving forward, because he did really well last week when it was with Matt Ryan. But as we know, Matt Ryan got benched, and it's just been an absolute whirlwind of news this week. So unsure how Campbell will do moving forward.
Paris Campbell and, of course, Michael Pittman, the top receiver in Indianapolis. You have to wonder about him going forward as well. Interesting comment here from Benvolio. Whoops. Tyreek and David Montgomery for JT and Amari Cooper. Who wins? That's a tough one, man. I think a
Yeah,
lot of that
very
depends
tough.
on how soon Taylor gets healthy and how productive he can be. I do think the Colts will go run heavy the rest of the year.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, he didn't look 100% in his return, but he looked at least decent. So, and they kind of had to abandon the run. So, where if they'd had the lead, he'd have done better. So,
Yeah,
I mean, Tyreek's been so good, though. I think I'd rather that side, because Montgomery, as we saw last night, the Bears are capable of running the football. So to me, the difference between Monty and JT isn't quite as much as the difference between Tyreek and Cooper. I know Cooper's been solid, but Tyreek's been a top 3 receiver. You gotta keep that, I'd say.
I agree with that. The first pair there is certainly something you can count on more than the second pair. Let's put it that way. I just don't know what that second pair is volatile. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Super C and B challengers. How you doing? Pittman or Mike Evans rest of the season? I got to go Mike Evans on that.
Yeah, I normally would have said Pittman, but with the quarterback change, give me Evans, because with Ellinger, they might just be like, you know what, we're just gonna play ground and pound, control the clock, old school type football. So yeah, give me Evans, because I don't think Pittman gets quite as much volume.
And even with the Bucks passing offense struggling, Mike Evans is getting his numbers. I mean, he hasn't been terrible, so I think he'll continue to get them. Moving on to tight ends, week 7, George Kittle #1. Look at #2, Jawan Johnson. And I have another comment on this later in the show, but kind of goes to show you the Cardinals under Cliff Kingsbury have had this history of giving up big games to tight ends, even the ones you wouldn't think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just yeah. That's why someone asked me earlier today about Jawan, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not feeling it." They just took advantage of a soft matchup. Plus, they've got Taysom and Troutman, where it's like he's not going to
Mike
get enough.
Adam Troutman was out. That's also true. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right, yeah, and he should be back this week. So yeah, I'm not expecting this to continue for Johnson. George Kittle, encouraging to see him back on track. As long as he's healthy, he's showing that he's still a must start. And then of course Kelsey's strong. Fryermuth back in the mix. And Njoku, man, Njoku had been so strong. Shame to see him be out multiple weeks now with a high ankle sprain.
Yeah, 2 to 5 weeks for David Njoku, and those 14 points, he was on pace for a big game. I mean, that was with missing time because of injury. Another comment from Super C&B: offer Derrick Henry for Mike Evans and Jerry Jeudy. Spencer, I'm not doing that unless I'm real shallow at running back. But what's your thought?
I kind of like it, unless if you're kind of thin at receiver, though, I'd hold Evans and Jeudy. But if you're real deep there and shallow at running back, I think that's a fair trade. But you just you got to look at the makeup of your roster to determine if it's worth it or not.
Also think it matters there if that's a PPR. Derrick Henry not quite as valuable there either. Buddy 75P, how are you doing? Do I trade Ken Walker for Debo and James Robinson? What do you think?
Trade Ken Walker for that. I don't know, man. Debo's banged up now. He's got the hamstring. Ayuk's been getting more involved. I probably wouldn't. I don't think, because we don't know how much.
I think we lost Spencer there just for a second. But James Robinson just traded to the Jets, by the way, so he is probably going to be at least the first and second down back there in New York, in New Jersey, I should say. So I don't necessarily hate that, but I really am high on Walker right now. So Jerry says, good afternoon. Hey, Jerry. We're going to move on to stars of the week while we wait for Spencer to reconnect. He got frozen with his eyes closed. That's tight. Looking to trade your whole team. I'll buy you a roast beef po' boy, Uncle Big Nick. Let's go to where's your spot? Where's your spot in New Orleans? We'll find it. I'll buy you a roast beef po' boy and poach your team. Last place in the Listener League. Let's check out the Listener League. Listener League standings: Bucktown Rebel over 1,000 points already, 7-0, still undefeated. The perfect season is alive. Shouts out to Bucktown Rebel. If you are here, drop in a comment and let us know, because that's pretty impressive stuff. It's only half a season, got a ways to go. I think Spencer is back with us, but I'm singing the praises of Bucktown Rebel, Spence.
Yeah, Bucktown's been killing it, man. 7-0, just him and Bama and I think Minoka, I guess is how you say it. My bad if I butchered the name, but those three have just been really strong. And even you, Zach, 5-2. That's y'all. The four of y'all are pulling away. I need to get going because I want to still make a playoff push. Can't go down like this. We gotta shake back, Guru Squad number 16.
Yeah, a little bit of separation there. The top four got a 2-game lead, and of course the top four make the playoffs at the end of the year. So Bucktown Rebel right now the favorite for those Saints tickets. Uncle Big Nick wants to trade his team for a po' boy, even though he only lost by half a point. Moving on to our stars of the week, Spencer. We talked about him, but Josh Jacobs, your guy.
Yeah, I had to go with Jacobs. He's just been so strong, as he pointed out there. 3 straight games over 30 points. Just been such a stud. 3 touchdowns this week. And it's been nice to see the Raiders finally commit to him as the workhorse. Early on, it was, they'd give a few touches here and there to Brandon Bolden and stuff. For now, it's like I think McDaniels is waking up and realized that, Jacobs is the guy. We need to feed him, and it's paid off because the Raiders' offense has been better as a result now that he's taken over.
And that will be object number one, because, listen, the Raiders can hurt you with Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, obviously, and that passing game. But if you watch the way the Raiders like to set things up, and they really had that offense rolling against Houston on Sunday, they'll run the ball to set up the pass. They absolutely will. And so mission number one for that Saints defense has to be get a hold on Josh Jacobs, force the Raiders into some second and long, third and long situations, and then get after Derek Carr, because that's what you got to do. He's one of those quarterbacks with a clean pocket. He's going to pick you apart. But in other situations, you can rattle him a little bit. And so stop the running game first. That'll be the Saints' objective.
Most definitely. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of worried, because, between the Jacobs and then Adams through the air, it's just that's a legit offense there for the Raiders. Their defense hadn't been too good. Kind of like the over. I don't forgot what the over under was, somewhere in the 40s. I'm thinking it could end up a shootout.
Well, the way the Saints have played lately, man, they all go over, it seems like.
Yeah.
But that over under is 49.5, so they'd have to get into the 50s
so you
to hit
pushed
the
it
over.
up. Damn, I
Yeah.
don't know. There's not as much value then. I thought it was more in the mid 40s, but
And
odds
of course,
makers aren't stupid.
no, they're not. And 49, a key number, of course, 7 touchdowns. So we'll wrap up week 7. My fantasy star, I'm going with Kenneth Walker the third. I mean, this guy was barely drafted. And if he was drafted, he was probably dropped a couple of weeks later. He's a league winner at this point. I mean, if you have Kenneth Walker the third on your team, which I think I do in our fantasy league, you're in really good shape because I mean, even if you had a running back injury or something, he's an RB1, stays healthy, pencil him in the rest of the year. And if you didn't have any other running back injuries and you throw him in your flex, you're really sitting pretty.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, he's really killed it here and looking like I said earlier with Breece Hall out, he's looking like the top rookie running back to where he's someone you can not just he's you can count on him each week to where I know they had the trade question earlier. Yeah, I'd keep him. I'd keep him because it's I know he could sell high at this point, but to me it's not really worth selling on somebody that's been as strong as him and should continue to keep that up.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I think he's a league winner, and that's saying something because it takes a lot to do that. Um, by the way, Kenneth Walker III passed Chris Olave and Damian Pierce to be the favorite to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. So those three have quite a bit of separation over the field. Brian Robinson also a possibility there in Washington. But Olave missed a game. We'll see if he can. He's still in the mix, but not the favorite anymore. That's Kenneth Walker. Let's see. Super CNB says he traded away Alec Pierce to get Ken Walker. Great trade.
Ooh, what a
That's
deal. Great
Yeah,
deal.
trading high on Pierce and you got Walker right before he exploded. That's kudos to you. You're watching the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com. Zach Ewing along with Spencer the Guru. We've wrapped up week 7. Going to move on to week 8 here and talk about what's to come. Chiefs on a bye, Chargers on a bye. And so some big names you are going to have out of your lineup tonight. Pat Mahomes, or this week, I should say, Austin Eckler,
Yeah.
Justin Herbert. So yeah, you're gonna have some big names out of your lineups. So where do we fill those holes? Spencer's waiver wire targets. And by the way, continue to leave your questions, trade questions, pickup questions in the comments. Give us a like, subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We sure do appreciate that. So here are Spencer's waiver wire targets, one at each position, Guru.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good week if you need waiver wire help because they've got some pretty quality names here at all 4 positions. Daniel Jones, good matchup against the Seahawks, should do pretty well this week because he has his rushing, showing off his rushing ability at over 100 yards last week. So he's somebody, even if he's not slinging it through the air, if he's running, he's got some fantasy value there. And then Gus Bus is back. Gus the Bus Edwards made a surprise return and did quite well, had a couple of touchdowns and should be the primary back there now with J.K. Dobbins on IR and then Donovan Peoples-Jones should do pretty well there in Cleveland, especially now that David Njoku's hurt. Will free up some targets. So where Peoples-Jones, he's been pretty consistent, and now with more targets up for grabs should continue that trend. And then Greg Dulcich, the rookie tight end for Denver, done well in the past couple weeks now that he's back and he's showing that he's the primary receiving tight end there. Albert O nowhere to be found.
Interesting as we move on, Spencer. We talk about this every week. Who do you drop? Because that's almost as important of a question as who you pick up. So your gotta go segment, and I want to skip right to the bottom. And there's a name at the top that'll catch some eyeballs too. But at the bottom, you say go ahead and drop Njoku. He's out 2 to 5 weeks, so we don't know. He's been the number 4 scoring tight end in fantasy this year. But you're ready to say, even if that means he's not worth the dead roster spot for 2 to 5 weeks. In other words.
Yeah, that's the main point of why I put him on here. I mean, obviously, if he was healthy, you wanna keep him in your lineup. But yeah, normally not worth keeping 2 tight ends. If you're like in a deeper league, then definitely don't cut him. But in a lot of like 10, 8-man leagues where the bench is small and you gotta try to have your depth strong at running back and receiver. A lot of times it's not worth keeping 2 tight ends, which is why I have him on here. It sucks because he's been one of the more reliable tight ends, but high ankle sprains. He's going to be out a while. And then when he comes back, he might not be quite the same.
Well, and the other factor there in Cleveland is Deshaun Watson in 5 weeks now will be coming back, and that changes your offense. I mean, David Njoku's been a safety blanket for Jacoby Brissett. Maybe Watson wants to go downfield more. Maybe that opens up Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper, that sort of thing, just in time for the fantasy playoffs. So you might get Njoku back in time for the playoffs, and then he might not be the same role in the offense either. So interesting decision there if you are an Njoku owner. Also, if you're an Aaron Rodgers owner, Spencer says time to cut bait.
Yeah, definitely. That's the one I feel most strongly about here because it's just Aaron Rodgers is just stunk this year. I mean, he's not showing any signs of improvement. Lazard's hurt now. He'll probably be without him as one target he could rely upon. Now he'll have zero reliable weapons. Randall Cobb's hurt too. So it's just it's getting ugly in Green Bay. It's I mean, this might be the beginning of the end as far as Rodgers, like his being an elite quarterback, because he has not been that this year. And for fantasy, he's been very mid to pretty much poor. So it's at the quarterback position, you only start one. So to me, it's just not worth keeping him anymore.
Aaron Rodgers, I just looked it up, an average points per game among quarterbacks, number 22. One spot
That's
behind Russell Wilson,
yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, and he's
And,
another
and
one. I put him last week on the
yeah,
you gotta go because it's just you can't keep
and,
guys that are performing that bad.
and I mean, quite frankly, I think I trust Wilson to bounce back a little more than I trust Rodgers because he does have some weapons. He's in a new offense. He's been hurt. I mean, you could see, I'm not saying that Russell Wilson's going to be the MVP of the second half or anything, but you can at least see spots where he gets better and more comfortable. Plus, he's going to bring that rushing element. Aaron Rodgers, well, I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, he's yeah, that's what I was saying. It's probably time to cut bait. You know, Wilson, like you said, has a little more potential to bounce back with the weapons and maybe some rushing ability. But Rodgers and also the age. I mean, Wilson isn't quite as old. He's mid-30s. Rodgers almost 40 years old. So it could also be not only the lack of weapons, but also just father time catching up to him. And then Wilson and Gallup, I don't like either moving forward. You know, Gallup's hadn't really shown much coming off a torn ACL. I'm thinking this might just be kind of a lost year for him. And then Wilson with CMC there isn't going to see enough work to be relevant.
Yeah, the addition of Christian McCaffrey certainly changes that equation, and Elijah Mitchell may come back at some point too. Like if
Yeah.
you're holding on to Wilson, you're really got to be desperate at running back. Watching the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com and the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. We sure do appreciate it. And comment with your questions for Spencer as we move into the DFS portion of the program. Week 8 DFS. I see a lot I like in this week, Spencer. In that main slate, the noon and 3 p.m. games on Sunday, I see a lot I like. But you go first with your picks for Week 8.
Yeah, there's a lot of value to be had this week, it looks like. You know, I think Derek Carr is a good value there under 6,000 at quarterback. Should be able to put up a lot of points against the Saints in what I'm thinking will be a shootout, which is I also have Chris Olave on there. Even if Thomas and Landry can come back, I still expect Olave to be the primary target, and he's shown good chemistry with Winston and Dalton. So the quarterback, whoever the quarterback is, it probably won't matter. He should do well. And then Tony Pollard, good matchup against the Bears. I know the Bears did well last night, but it's kind of an outlier. I feel they've overall been really bad against the run. Plus, Zeke's banged up right now, so Pollard might be in for a big workload. And then Tyler Higbee gets a pretty good amount of targets there and has had some good games against the 49ers in the past.
Yeah, and I think to your point, even in a win last night for the Bears, Ramondre Stevenson still had a big game for New England. So you can run on the Bears. I promise you the Cowboys are going to want to run on the Bears because Dak, it's only his second game back. He's been kind of inconsistent. I like that a lot. My DFS plays, I'm really looking at that Dolphins-Lions matchup. A little worried it gets too chalky. But if you don't like Tua at 6,200, I'd also take a look at Jared Goff because I think that game just turns into an absolute shootout. The Lions can't stop the pass. Tua's got a week back under his belt now. We know he's got the receivers. I don't mind paying up for Tyreek Hill. I love everything about that matchup. At running back, I'm going Eno Benjamin, who I think he's taken over the starting spot in Arizona. He's looked really good since James Conner went out. Vikings, not a terrible run defense, but not a great one either. And I think there's a possibility there for Eno to do some damage. And then I'm picking on a couple of weak defenses. DJ Moore, look, I know it's It's PJ Walker at quarterback. I know the Panthers offense is cringeworthy, but 5,300 for a number one receiver against the Falcons defense? Give me some of that. And then the same thing, we talked about this earlier. I kind of teased it. Irv Smith Jr., you can get him super cheap. He means you can go pay for stars like Tyreek Hill at other positions. He's facing that Cardinals defense. Tight ends keep getting opportunities. And even though Irv Smith only has like 160 yards or something on the season, he's got 3 touchdown catches. He's going to get targeted in the red zone. So for 3,500, I'll take some Irv Smith.
Yeah, I like the Irv Smith play a lot. That's a nice value there, considering how bad the Cardinals have been against tight ends. I actually have a season-long league where I have Irv and Pitts, and I'm benching Pitts for Irv this week because Irv with that matchup, and considering how bad Pitts has been, to me, he's definitely worth a start there.
Imagine
Because
saying that preseason that you would bench Kyle Pitts for Irv Smith. Irv Smith has some upside, but I mean, Kyle Pitts, I think, makes anybody who's played fantasy football makes Kyle Pitts makes your mouth water. But he just hasn't gotten that target share in Atlanta.
no, yeah, and he just I don't know, just watch it. I watched some of that game Sunday. He just didn't look too good out there, like targeted near the end zone. He just looked kind of soft, like going up for it. Like he just I don't know. I think he might be. I mean, he could still get there. I wouldn't give up on him as far as his long term outlook, but for this season, it's like if he doesn't pick it up soon, he's going to be the next victim of you got to go.
All right, all right.
So he
And
better
Falcons
pick it
very
up.
very run heavy offense there as well.
Yeah.
We like to end the week with our sleeper picks. Before we go, you got Wandale of the Giants, Spencer.
Yeah. Like Wandale almost made my waiver wire list, but I gave the edge to Peoples Jones because of the matchup should be a shootout against the Bengals and also just he's probably better moving forward because of the absence of Njoku. But I really like Wandale too. They're basically a tie because he's got a good matchup this week too, and he's becoming more and more involved in the offense there. That's been trending up lately, and yeah, he should be pretty solid here moving forward, and especially for this week, I like it against the Seahawks.
It's the All Robinson show for our Week 8 sleepers. I've got James Robinson just traded to the Jets. A lot of times, the first week a guy's traded, you don't necessarily want to play him. But two things are clear to me. And number one is that the Jets don't want Michael Carter to be anything other than a third down back. You don't go trade for Robinson if you believe he can be your every down back. So Michael Carter's going to be the third down back. And then the other thing is the Jets are, I mean, how are they going to attack the Patriots? You think they're going to put the game, a huge game, by the way. They're 5-2, looking to cement themselves as the only challenger to the Bills in the AFC East. They're going to attack the Patriots with Zach Wilson and put the game in his hands? I don't think so. I think they're going to run the ball. I think James Robinson's going to get a ton of carries. And the Patriots showed you can run on them last night, and they have already this season. Not a great run defense, pretty good pass defense, though. And so I think game flow really helps James Robinson in a game the Jets will look to control with running game and defense.
For sure. Yeah, I was thinking maybe he might get off to a little bit of a slow start, being that he hadn't done too well in Jacksonville lately. Although he's probably been able to kind of rest up, being that he hadn't gotten many carries. So yeah, he should get a good amount of work there. I'm thinking New England's run defense bounces back. I think this is, even though they killed me last night as far as best bets and survivor, even though I'm mad at them, but I got to be real. I think this is a good get right spot for them against the Jets team that, again, I know they've been great lately, but losing Breece, I don't expect J-Rob to do like what Breece had been doing. But if he breaks a big one, you never know.
One more thing, who do you like in Survivor this week? I've got a little bit of stake still in Survivor pools.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm out, but if I had to pick, if I was still in, I'd go either Philly or Dallas. Probably, man, after what I saw last night, probably Philly. The Bears looked way better than I expected.
Yeah, the Bears are scary, and those are the two I'm looking at. If you wanted to pivot, Atlanta's out there. They're what, 4.5 point favorites on Carolina. Probably not going to be favored much the rest of the year. So if you have to take, if it's a situation where you have to start to pick two teams and you have to get to every team, this might be a week you look at Atlanta as well. You really would be rolling the dice, obviously. There, I
Yeah,
don't know that I want my pool to be on the shoulders of the Falcons, but we'll see. We'll see. Spencer, it's been real. Thanks for the comments, everybody. If you have any more, real quick, we've got about 30 more seconds. go ahead and drop them down there, and we will get to them before we go. But in the meantime, your final thought at the midway poll of the fantasy football season.
Right, right. Yeah, I know a lot of teams at this point, some teams are looking really strong and others are looking kind of weak and others are looking in the middle. So I have a little quick pointers for each. If you're at the top, just stay hungry, don't get complacent because you might have bad luck with injuries at some point. So stay hungry, keep savvy with the waiver wire. If you're in the middle of the pack, be very mindful of trades. I try to swing some trades because sometimes if those trades can push you up to the top, and then if you're at the bottom, I'd say just keep scrapping away with the waiver wire because if you're near the bottom, you probably don't have enough to trade. But if you can be super savvy with the wire and make good lineup decisions, you never know. You can always claw your way back. So don't give up if you're near the bottom. I've had a few leagues where I'm struggling right now, but I'm definitely gonna keep chipping away because I've seen years to where I was near the bottom at this point and made a run at the championship.
Yeah, certainly not too late. Very few leagues are you more than, say, 3 or 4 games out of a playoff spot. So if you get on a run, it can happen. You go get a pickup like a Kenneth Walker or somebody with that sort of impact. You can definitely get it done. All right, that's our show for today. We thank everybody for stopping by, asking questions, making comments. We'll be back next Tuesday at 2 o'clock here on the Fantasy Roundup. In the meantime, check out Bayou Bets live at 4 p.m. on Thursday, previewing Saints and Raiders. We'll talk college football picks, make our big bucks picks, and all of that good stuff. Also talk to Max Meyer of Caesars Sportsbook for some NFL trends and data as well. So until then, for Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing, and this has been the Fantasy Roundup.